frontier is defined as uncharted territory by land or ocean. Those who chart that territory tell a story. The past illustrates the blueprint for the present, how things are and how they've evolved. From land to water, we are challenged to border that new frontier, a frontier the outdoorsman knows like no other. Author Gary Lewis works his way along that edge of where discoveries, failures, and achievements have written the story of the sportsman.
Yes! Yes!
From state to state, continent to continent, the stories told create the foundation of the present, and they lay the framework for the future. Through the muzzle fire and on the stone are stories from the edge.
Water is the most important thing as far as Indians are concerned, 'cause that's life.
The past is written, the present is here, and this is Frontier Unlimited.
It's the challenge of the sport. It's being able to, solve the puzzle of what's going on any particular day, and to perceive the subtle changes that can take place. Because really, the ultimate goal is consistency in fishing. It's being able to consistently catch fish, across a whole range of seasons, bad weather to good weather, and so solving that. And then really, it's all about the strike. It's that feeling of when the fish first takes the fly, whether it's a dry fly or a streamer. And then those first official few seconds of the fight, that's the addiction right there, at least for me.
One rod for dry flies if fish were rising. One rod with a slow sink line for a streamer if the tigers were chasing.
Diamond Lake was sterile. When people who lived in the Roseburg area cut a trail up to the lake and they found this beautiful place with no fish in it, they brought a mule train of fish up in barrels. And so you picture 16 or 20 mules, and some of them have barrels attached to them, and they brought up ice to keep the water cold, and all these fingerling trout. And that was the first planting of fish in this lake. This lake is one of the most food-rich lakes in the whole state, and the fish here, you put them in as a fingerling, they put on about an inch of growth every month. Their second year, they can be 14, 16, 18 inches long, and they get really fat too. The body of food, the biomass in this lake is just incredible. Over the years, people figured out that they could use these tui chubs for bait. And they'd bring them up from Klamath Falls, they'd put them in the lake, use them for bait, the fish would escape, the tui chubs overpopulated. Over the course of time, this lake has had to be killed off using rotenone, which is a poison that will kill every fish in the body of water. So that's been done several times, and biologists have sought to find trout that will focus on killing the tui chubs when the tui chubs are reintroduced. And that's why they've put in this sterile strain called the tiger trout. Okay, so there's Craig. Craig is right there. To start, I'm using this kind of a copper-colored leech with some good yellows and some rusty orange in it, and it's already wet, so you can see how that copper in the body is going to sparkle, and then the good heavy bead on there. There's brown trout in here now, which is new for Diamond Lake. We have to release the brown trout. So the brown trout are here also to control any chubs. that might be here. So browns and tiger trout for that express reason. And then rainbows, you can keep them here.
When tiger trout were introduced as fingerlings to Diamond Lake in the fall of 2016, Lewis marked the summer of 2019 as the time to chase them. When Lewis talked to John from Diamond Lake Resort last winter at the Central Oregon Sportsman Show, he marked out 2 days in July.
Nice way to start the morning.
Yeah.
They've got some girth, so they're pretty healthy.
Yeah. The rainbow is really an opportunity, equal opportunity eater, but they'll focus on bugs to a high degree. And the brown trout eventually turns out, after it gets big enough, it really wants to eat smaller fish. So it's a natural choice for putting in a place where there's smaller fish that have the tendency to overpopulate. Tiger trout are also very focused on eating smaller fish when they get the chance. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next few years. We've got a bunch of them around us, a bunch of fish around us.
Tiger trout were first noticed in the wild in 1944. Lewis figured he would never get a chance till he heard they were at Diamond Lake.
Congratulations. Yeah. Yep.
I always thought it'd be fun to catch one.
You were right. Yeah, first tiger trout that I've seen come out of here. And obviously people have been getting them, but that was Craig's first one. I think we've got a really good spot here. The water's nice and deep and a good cloud cover today. We should be able to fish a little bit longer than usual. Trout are really vulnerable to ospreys when the day is clear and the birds can see in really easily. And so if you have a little bit of a cloud cover, we've got maybe 2-mile-an-hour wind. And so with this little riffle on the water and the cloud cover, the fish are more confident and they'll feed a little bit longer in the morning and gives us an opportunity to fish them a little bit longer. I think it's a tiger. Oh, yeah. Okay, well, he might give us one. Oh, yeah, that was all he gave us. Woo! Man. All right, that was beautiful fish. We're gonna try and get him again. Wow, that was beauty. I hooked it up right between me and Bob. Bob's out there for good luck for me. And this one's a nice fish too. I thought it was smaller when I hooked it. Oh, he just wrapped me around a weed too. Okay, but I think I'm free of it.
Brown trout are true trout, while brook trout are char. Trout have dark spots on a light background, while char have light spots on a darker background.
First tiger.
In combination, the tiger trout was vermiculaceous instead of spots, evocative of a tiger.
I always like to watch Bob. Bob was using short 6-inch strips and was kind of varying them, varying the speed, little pause every now and then. And so that's what worked for me on both of those fish. You know, after a couple of toothy fish like that, it's time to retie. Okay, 4X fluorocarbon. There's all these weeds in the lake. It's not just like one big weed bed. Instead, it's like a weed coming up here and one there, one here. You're bringing the fly through there. It's like a little fish swimming through the weeds. And then these tiger trout, oh, it just got bit. These tiger trout and the rainbows and the browns are cruising through those weeds, just looking for something to eat. This is just like a little fish swimming through those weeds. And the more I could try to picture the bottom and whatever structures down there, the better it helps me fine-tune the presentation. There's a thing you do when you're lake fishing, and I learned it in Fly Fishing and Tying Journal, the old Fly Fishing the West magazine. When you're bringing your fly in on the retrieve, it's coming up through the water column, and the longer you can fish it as it gets close to the boat, you don't just pull it out of the water and make your recast, but the longer you can fish it as you pull it up. I was just doing that automatically, watching them bring that fish in. And boom, I got bit right here, right at my feet. One of the last roads to be built in Oregon was this Highway 138 that connects over to Central Oregon and down to Medford. Before that, it was an Indian trail and a rugged pass. And this lake was named for a cattle rancher named Diamond. And he was the one that discovered it. The pioneers who lived down in Roseburg, they brought trout up here on a big mule team. And so they had ice in barrels to keep the fish fresh and keep them alive. And they had fish in other barrels. And they brought them up here and they put fish for the first time into this lake that never had fish before.
I caught them on the brown and I caught them on the pumpkinhead olive. Both of those were really good. It was either brown or olive. Both of them caught fish.
That's the Diamond Lake prototype rainbow right there. What a gorgeous trout. Bob's got one on right now.
I knew right away we only had a couple of spots to fish, either deep or shallow. Shallow meaning where water would be coming in like Silent Creek was at a much cooler rate, and deeper. Now, if that's the case, when you find out you've only got 2 to 3 or 4 feet to fish, it's already telling you you're going to fish very sparse, light things. I caught one on the olive, caught 3 or 4 on this. I was thinking of bringing a 10-foot 4-weight because of that. But that was a big fish.
Yeah, it was. The south end of the lake is a great place for fly fishing because these flats continue for so long and the bug growth in this shallow, warm water is really rich.
Man, I just felt a deja vu. Strip, 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 no bites. I don't know when that was, but it's happened to me before.
I know, man. That was a tiger, Dad.
You know, I had to pinch the barb off because I got it on my anchor rope, so I lost 2 now.
I'm going with a kind of a cerise claret leech. There's some blood red in there, some wine, some purple, some ultraviolet. It's tied on a jig style hook so that the point is going to ride up instead of down. It presents a slightly different attitude to the fly. Just repositioned. We got an anchor up front here, anchor in the back, just kind of holding us in the spot here. Land of the Giants.
Black, white, Gary?
Black and purple.
To target tiger trout, start with minnow and bait fish. Although tigers may be caught on any other bait, lure, or fly, imitations that mimic golden shiners or tui chubs, baby rainbows, and brown trout are good choices.
Yeah. I caught it right under the surface. He was splashing and I cast to him, and then I saw him hanging there and he had it in his mouth, so I just set the hook. It was just under the surface.
I was thinking along these lines. A lake, I was thinking small, very sparse leach patterns, stripping those through the water. You know, I knew the calabatus were coming off up here as well. I didn't give a whole lot of thought to that because I knew I'd be using a clear intermediate sinking line and something I could strip through the water just because that's the way I like to fish. First thing I always look for is insects. Is there any insects flying around? That'll give you some idea to whether you're going to be looking for fish activity or not. And we've come to an area we know there's fish, so I don't see a lot of fish activity. Bugs are minimal. There's some little midges flying around. No, I just pick a pattern. My go-to tends to be a little streamer and sinking line, and see if we can get any bites with that. And then just change up as we go along as the fish get more active.
Well, as big as we got it yesterday was pretty great, but hopefully we can get something bigger. That would be awesome, yeah.
So I got a little claret, very sparse leech, and a burnt orange, even smaller leech kind of trailing off. Both did well yesterday. We'll see how they do this morning. Really, I start out with about 2-inch strips, just little snappy ones, snap, 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 snap. Put a little pause in between. Lengthen the pauses a little bit. If I want the nymphs to drop a little bit before I strip. Sometimes, this bottom. We were kind of doing this yesterday morning too. Casting over rising fish, but we didn't start getting hit with these leeches until a little later. If they don't want the leech yet, maybe they'll see that little nymph or soft tackle and say, you know, ooh, I'll take that. The choppiness on the water will help the trout feel more protected because of the broken surface water. We can't see down in now, and they can't necessarily see up at us. It's all refracted. They might feel a little bit more comfortable to move around and eat something. They feel more protected.
The minute wind changes and it lays down. But that's when you want to think inshore and start stripping stuff streamer-wise. Yeah. Early morning, if you're a chironomid guy, that's when you want to do that. In evenings you can too, but in general, if you're after a big fish, you're going to strip in the evening, close to shore. Fish are always interpreting where the food source is and what's going on, and wind has a heck of a lot to do with it. Sun has a heck of a lot to do with it. So those are two key things for fish.
I think the guy I've got my first hook up. Ooh. I think it was a really fast strike. The fly hadn't been on the water for more than 10 seconds.
Chop meant food's being moved around. Also, they're safer.
Yep. Right.
They don't have to worry about stuff, so let's just get active.
Yep.
So the flatter, the clearer, the tougher. And so it was a little tougher. We had to fish a little slower in the morning to encourage a take.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I started off, because I had been drinking coffee, I started off going, chick, chick, chick. And then I realized, oh, Gary, you're doing it again. So I just went back to slow and then putting pauses in there.
Letting it rise and drop.
Yeah.
That one hit hard. He was chasing. little hump right above its front fins there. It's a carry special, but I put just a little red glass bead right on the head. It seems to work. It kind of improves maybe the carry special a little bit in some situations.
Well, most lakes that anytime grow fish fast is that over the winter they can feed on scuds. And I don't care where you are. If you have fast growth in lakes for fish, it's scuds. There's always chironomids in all lakes. Chironomid fishing is very popular, but the nutrients in a scud is much higher than chironomids. So if they've got a lot of chironomids and scuds, they're in great shape. And that's how fish get big, and they stay there. So when the season starts, you're looking for healthier fish. That's the reason they're healthy. So desert lakes, everybody thinks, oh, desert lakes aren't very good. If you go out on the, no, they're great because there's tons of scuds in them. Those fish get huge. So that's the key. And Klamath Lake, tons of scuds, tons of leeches, tons of all that stuff. Those fish feed in the wintertime, no problem. Okay, so that's the key to how they grow fast.
Back in the 1920s, a man named George Howard fished Diamond Lake for the first time and said the trout were so big he had to sink a corner of his raft to get the fish aboard. Diamond Lake is still like that. Fish grow big and fast in this food-rich water. By next summer, those 2016 class tigers should be well into the 22 to 26 inch range.